In our previous video, we tackled the callout, and in this video, we're going to take on the navigation and the alert box. To begin with, I need to create a new container. So this is going to be container fluid, and it's also going to have the class of navAlert container. This is going to contain our alert and our navbar. I'm also going to adjust the HTML here by changing navbar light to navbar dark and taking off the BG light class. In my style CSS now then, I'm going to scroll down and add a new section where I can put all of my navbar styling. So I'll just put the comment in there of navbar, and we'll add some basic styles to our navAlert container. First of all, it's going to have the position of absolute, and it's going to be fixed to the top left corner. We'll switch off the padding on the left and on the right. Then we're going to override Bootstrap's default navbar class by switching off the bottom margin, by switching off any border that Bootstrap might choose to give it, setting the width to 100%. We're going to use RGBA again for our background color, but this time set the opacity to 0.25%, so it's going to be slightly darker than our opaque layer. And now when I refresh the page, our navbar doesn't appear at all. Why is that? Well, let's check in Chrome Developer Tools. As we can see when we highlight it, our navbar is there, it's just behind the other content. To fix this, we can give our container a z-index of 1. Just as the X and the Y are used to identify where something is in horizontal or vertical space, z-index is used for 3D space. Imagine everything in your browser window in layers, one in front of or behind another. So by increasing the z-index, we can bring things forward. And that's what we've done here. The default z-index is 0, so by giving a z-index of 1, then that pulls our container a little bit further forward. Let's check how this looks in a mobile view. And everything looks good. We have a little border there on our button that I'd like to get rid of, so I'm just going to select it. And then we can see that this is using the navbar toggler class. So we can go back to our CSS, and we can override the navbar toggler class. So navbar space navbar toggler, and we'll set the border to 0. When I refresh that, then the border has gone, and that looks a bit cleaner. Okay, the next thing I want to do is adjust my navbar brand. And again, we'll edit it here. We can see that it's the navbar brand class. And I want to give it the font weight of bold because I think that would look a little bit nicer. When we've got that then, all I need to do is just copy everything that we have here and paste that in. Since the color actually comes from the navbar dark class, I don't need to keep that. I can just put font weight bold. And while we're at it, I'd like to also adjust my navigation items here. I'd like them to be bold as well. So let's have a look and see exactly what class we're using here. So we can just actually target the navbar again. Navbar nav, which is the parent container for the navigation part, and then all of my A-links. And I'm going to give that the font weight of bold. So let's save that, refresh the page, and we can see there that our links are looking a bit better as well. I also then want to adjust my sign-in, sign-up link so that it looks the same as the button that we created earlier. To do this, I'm just going to add the appropriate classes to my A tag here. I'm going to give it the class of button, BTN, then my BTN CTA, and my BTN red class. And now the two match. So our navbar looks very good. We're happy with that. Now let's go back and start looking at the alert. So I'm going to cut it from where I'd commented it out before. and paste it in at the top of my nav alert container. I'm going to uncomment the code, Command-Shift-B or Control-Shift-B just to indent it properly. Then I'm just going to change this to a container fluid so it goes full width, and we'll style it with a new class which we'll call Site-Wide Alert. But let's just save that and have a little look at what we get first. So it doesn't look too bad. It pushes down the navbar more than I'd like. There's some gaps on the left and the right-hand side. Let's see where that's coming from. So if I select it, then we can see that we're getting a padding of 15 pixels on the left and the right. If I double-click on that, and change those to 0, then that's starting to look a bit better. It's full width. So let's go back and do the same then in our CSS. So we'll target the column, and we'll switch the padding off on the left and the padding on the right. Switch them both to 0. So when we refresh, that's looking an awful lot better, but we still have those rounded corners, and the color is looking a little bit washed out. So let's start styling our site-wide alert class. So the first thing we want to do is get rid of those rounded corners. To do this, we're going to set the border radius to 0. We're also going to set the margin bottom to 0 to stop it from pushing down our navigation. But we will give it some internal padding. And when I do that, already things are starting to look better. Let's change the color though. If I click here on my alert, we can see where the color is. We'll click on the color picker. And I want something a little bit deeper than the color that we have by default. So we'll put that in there. And then I also want the border to have the same color so that it all appears as one solid block. Now that's done. All I need to do is copy those CSS properties and paste them into my site-wide alert class. We'll save that. Refresh the page. And everything's looking good. Let's switch it to mobile and see if the alert vanishes like it should. And indeed it does. Very good. So things are looking okay. Our site is taking shape. There are still a few things left to do though. We want to tidy up some of our code, and we also haven't yet styled our features or our quotes section. We'll fix both of those in our final video.